Baek Ji Young's life is a wild ride of music, betrayal, and redemption that you won't believe. From Seoul streets to stardom, she danced her way into fame, only to face scandals that could have ended it all. Yet, she rose stronger, turning pain into power. This video dives into her incredible journey, hits, heartbreak, and a comeback for the ages. Want the full scoop on this Korean icon? Subscribe to our YouTube channel now and join us as we unpack her story. Hit that bell icon so you never miss a tale like this. Let's get started. Baek Ji Young came into this world on March 25, 1976, in the bustling city of Seoul, South Korea. Growing up, she was surrounded by the sounds of music that filled her home, a constant presence that shaped her dreams. As a kid, she soaked in all kinds of tunes, but it was the fiery rhythms of Latin dance music that really caught her ear. By the time she hit high school, she was already dipping her toes into the local music scene, even joining a trot music group for a short stint. Trot was huge among Korean teens back then, a twangy, heartfelt style that tugged at the heartstrings. But Baek had bigger ideas brewing. She wanted to mix things up, to blend the familiar with something bold and new. In 1999, at the age of 23, she burst onto the stage with her first album, Sorrow. It was a gamble that paid off big time. Her debut single, Choice, hit the airwaves with a splash, bringing Latin beats into Korean pop in a way no one had heard before. Picture this: a young woman with a husky voice dancing with passion to a salsa-infused track that made everyone sit up and listen. The song climbed the charts fast, and Baek wasn't just another singer, she was a sensation. Fans couldn't get enough of her fresh sound and that electric energy she brought to every performance. She didn't waste a minute riding that wave. Just a year later, in April 2000, she dropped her second album, Rouge. It was another home run, selling 360,000 copies and cementing her as one of South Korea's hottest acts. Songs like Sad Salsa and Dash had people dancing in the streets, her name on everyone's lips. Baek wasn't one to rest on her laurels. She kept the momentum going, experimenting with her sound while staying true to that Latin flair that made her stand out. Her third album, Tress, came out in 2001, and though it didn't hit the same dizzying heights as Rouge, it still moved nearly 200,000 copies, a solid win for any artist. By then, she'd carved out a niche as the queen of Latin-inspired dance tracks, a title that fit her like a glove. 2 years later, in September 2003, she released Smile, her fourth album. It was a quieter success, landing at 46th for the year, but it showed she could keep evolving, mixing in new vibes while holding on to her roots. That husky voice of hers, rich and full of emotion, was becoming a trademark, something fans could pick out in a heartbeat. Then came 2006, a turning point that would redefine her career. Her fifth album, Smile Again, hit the shelves in March, and it was a game changer. The lead single, I Won't Love, wasn't her usual dance number. It was a slow, soulful ballad that peeled back the layers of her talent. People were stunned. Here was this dance floor diva pouring her heart out, and it worked like magic. The song shot to the top of the charts, proving she could do more than just make people move. She could make them feel. The rest of the album still had that Latin spice, but I Won't Love showed a softer side, earning her a shiny award for Best Female Solo Singer at the Mnet Asian Music Awards that November. It was a moment of triumph, a sign she was hitting her stride. The hits kept coming. In September 2007, she unleashed the sixth miracle, her sixth album, with the single I Only Need One Love leading the charge. It was another winner, snagging her a prize at the Seoul Music Awards in early 2008. But that year wasn't all smooth sailing. Baek faced a scare when doctors found a cyst on her vocal cords. She was terrified she'd lose the voice that had carried her so far, but she went under the knife in February, determined to come back stronger. After months of recovery, she did just that. November 2008 saw the release of Sensibility, her seventh album, and it was a knockout. The single like being hit by a bullet, a mid-tempo ballad, soared to #1 on every major music site and even topped the charts on KBS's Music Bank. Critics started calling her the Ballad Queen, a nod to how she'd transformed from a dance star into a powerhouse of emotion. Baek wasn't done surprising people. In August 2009, she teamed up with Taecyeon from the boy band 2PM for My Ear Candy, a peppy pop dance track that flipped the script back to her upbeat roots. It was a smash, showing she could still light up the dance floor while keeping her ballad cred intact. The next year, 2010, she dropped Overtime, a single that ruled the charts on day one, alongside a greatest hits collection, Timeless, the best, that flew off the shelves. Then came 2011, and her 8th album, Pita, blew everyone away. At 35, in an industry obsessed with teen idols, she was still killing it. Critics couldn't believe how she kept reinventing herself and winning over fans old and new. Her voice found another home in TV dramas too. Baek started lending her talents to soundtracks, and she was a natural. Songs like Don't Forget for Iris and Love Is Not a Crime for Jam Young-go became fan favorites, but it was that woman from Secret Garden in 2010 that sealed the deal. That track won her the Outstanding Korean Drama OST Award at the 2011 Seoul International Drama Awards, a feather in her cap that showed just how far she'd come. She loved picking projects where the female lead spoke to her, saying it gave her a thrill to hear her music weave into those big, dramatic moments on screen. From a high school kid dreaming of music to a chart-topping star with a golden voice, Baek Ji Young's journey was one for the books. A story of grit, talent, and a whole lot of heart. Baek Ji Young's star was shining bright by the early 2000s, her voice a staple on radios across South Korea. But beneath the glitz of her rising fame, storm clouds were brewing, trouble that would shake her world to its core. In late 2000, just as her second album, Rouge, was flying off the shelves, whispers started circulating. They weren't about her music or her latest dance moves. They were about something far darker, a leaked sex tape that would drag her name through the mud and test her in ways she never imagined. It all started with a man named Kim Si-won, her manager at the time. Baek had trusted him to guide her career, a young artist leaning on someone she thought had her back. But Kim had other plans. Without her consent, he'd secretly recorded an intimate moment between them, a betrayal that cut deep. That tape, grainy and private, somehow made its way into the wrong hands. By November 2000, it was everywhere. Pirated copies popping up on shady websites, spreading like wildfire across South Korea's fledgling internet scene. Fans were stunned, the press was relentless, and Baek found herself at the center of a scandal she never saw coming. She was only 24, barely a year into her big break, and now her personal life was a national spectacle. The fallout was brutal. South Korea in 2000 wasn't the progressive hotspot it is today. Conservative values still held a tight grip, especially on women in the spotlight. Female celebrities were expected to be flawless, pure, a perfect image for the public to adore. A sex tape shattered that illusion, and the backlash hit Baek like a freight train. Newspapers splashed her name across headlines, TV shows debated her morality, and strangers online tore her apart. She wasn't just a singer anymore. She was a scandal, a cautionary tale. Her music, the thing she'd poured her soul into, got drowned out by the noise. Radio stations pulled her songs, and sponsors who'd once clamored to work with her started backing away fast. Baek didn't stay silent. She came out swinging, filing a lawsuit against Kim Si-won in December 2000. She accused him of secretly filming the video and leaking it, demanding justice for the violation. It was a bold move, one that took guts when the world seemed stacked against her. The courts granted an injunction to stop the tape's distribution, but the damage was done. Copies were already out there, impossible to erase. Kim didn't back down either. He countersued, claiming defamation and spinning a story that painted Baek as the villain. The legal battle stretched on, a messy tug of war that kept her name tied to the scandal for months. In the end, Kim faced charges, but the victory felt hollow. The public had already made up its mind. Her career took a nosedive. Shows she'd been booked for canceled her appearances, and the buzz around Rouge faded into awkward silence. Baek later admitted she felt like her dream was slipping away. Everything she'd built, all those late nights perfecting her craft, crumbling under the weight of shame she didn't deserve. She retreated from the spotlight, her once packed schedule now eerily empty. Friends said she barely left her house, the constant scrutiny too much to bear. For a while, it looked like the scandal might bury her for good, a rising star snuffed out before she could truly soar. But the story didn't end there. In 2009, nearly a decade later, the scandal reared its head again, this time with a twist. Kim Si-won, now going by Kim Jae-ho, had moved to the United States and was trying to claw his way back into the entertainment game. He started dropping hints about the old tape, threatening to stir the pot unless Baek paid him off. She wasn't having it. By then, she'd rebuilt her life and career, stronger and wiser than before. She went straight to the police, filing a blackmail complaint that put Kim back in the hot seat. South Korean authorities worked with US officials, and in August 2009, Kim was arrested in California on extortion charges. It was a surreal moment. Baek, now in her 30s, facing down the same man who'd nearly derailed her youth. The blackmail saga brought the old wounds back into the open. Reporters dug up the 2000 scandal, and for a stretch, it felt like history repeating itself. Online forums buzzed with opinions, some defending Baek, others dragging her through the mud all over again. Kim's arrest made international headlines, a messy chapter that refused to stay closed. He was extradited to South Korea in 2010, facing trial while Baek tried to keep her focus on the music. She told a journalist once that those years taught her who her real friends were, people who stuck by her when the world turned its back. The scandals left scars, no question about it. They tested her resilience, her faith in herself, and her love for the stage. The sex tape wasn't just a betrayal. It was a public humiliation that followed her like a shadow. The blackmail attempt years later proved the past wasn't done with her yet. A reminder of how one moment could echo for a lifetime. Through it all, Baek refused to let it define her. She'd been knocked down, dragged through the dirt, but she kept getting up. The girl who danced her way into Korea's heart wasn't about to let a couple of low blows steal her spotlight. She had more songs to sing, more stories to tell, and she wasn't going anywhere. Baek Ji Young stood at a crossroads after the scandals that rocked her world. The sex tape leak in 2000 had nearly crushed her, and the blackmail attempt in 2009 reopened old wounds, but she wasn't about to let those moments write her ending. By the time the dust settled from Kim Si-won's arrest, Baek was in her mid-30s, a woman who'd seen the highs of fame and the lows of betrayal. She could have walked away, faded into a quiet life, but that wasn't her style. Instead, she dug deep, channeling the pain into her music and her life, determined to come out on top. Her comeback wasn't instant. It was a slow burn, built on grit and a voice that refused to be silenced. After the 2000 scandal, she'd taken a step back, licking her wounds and rethinking her path. When she returned with Smile in 2003, it was a cautious re-entry, but it showed she still had fight left. The real turning point came with Smile Again in 2006. That album, with its raw ballad I Won't Love, hit like a thunderbolt, reminding everyone why they'd fallen for her in the first place. Fans old and new rallied around her, drawn to the honesty in her lyrics and the strength in her delivery. The scandal had made her a target, but it also made her relatable, a survivor in a world quick to judge. The 2009 blackmail mess tested her again, but by then, Baek was a different woman. She'd learned to lean on her craft, not just as a job, but as a lifeline. When Kim was hauled off in handcuffs, she didn't gloat. She got back to work. Her 8th album, Pita, dropped in 2011, and it was a triumph. At an age when many pop stars start to fade, she was selling out shows and topping charts, proving she could outlast the noise. Critics marveled at her staying power, calling her a phoenix rising from the ashes. She'd taken the hits, but she'd also taken control, turning her story into one of redemption. Love came into the picture too, softening the edges of her rough road. In 2011, she met Jung Suk-won, an actor 9 years her junior, on the set of a TV show. Sparks flew, and soon they were a couple, defying the gossip mills that love to poke at their age gap. Baek didn't care. She'd faced worse than raised eyebrows. They tied the knot in June 2013, a lavish wedding that felt like a victory lap. She was 37, glowing in a white dress, and for once, the headlines were about her happiness, not her hardships. A year later, they welcomed a daughter, Huyp, and Baek embraced motherhood with the same passion she brought to her music. She'd laugh later, saying her little girl was her toughest critic, keeping her grounded. Her career kept rolling, a mix of new hits and savvy moves. Soundtracks became her sweet spot. Those drama OSTs, like That Woman from Secret Garden, turned her into a household name for a new generation. She'd sit with producers, picking songs that matched the stories she loved, her voice weaving into scenes of heartbreak and hope. By 2017, she was juggling sold-out concerts with family life, a balancing act that left her tired but fulfilled. That year, she released Falling, a duet with 2PM's Taekyeon that climbed the charts, showing she could still hang with the young guns. Baek's personal growth shone through in quieter ways too. She started opening up about the scandals, not as a victim, but as someone who'd made it through. In interviews, she'd talk about forgiveness, not for Kim, but for herself, letting go of the guilt she'd carried. She got into charity work, supporting women's shelters and speaking out about mental health, causes close to her heart after her own battles. Fans saw a softer side, a woman who'd learned to laugh at life's curveballs. She'd joke about her vocal cord surgery in 2008, saying it gave her voice an extra rasp that fans couldn't get enough of. Today, in 2025, Baek Ji Young is a legend still in her prime. At 48, she's got a slew of awards, golden discs, soul music honors, and a discography that spans decades. Her latest single, Whisper, dropped last fall, a mellow track that's been streaming non-stop. She's touring again, selling out arenas from Seoul to Singapore, her husky voice as captivating as ever. Off stage, she's a mom and wife, posting goofy pics of Huyp on social media, where her followers top millions. The scandals are footnotes now, chapters in a story of a woman who wouldn't quit. She said she wants to keep singing until she's 70, and knowing Baek, she just might. From the wreckage of her past, she's built a life that's loud, proud, and undeniably hers. Baek Ji Young's tale is a testament to grit and grace. A star who turned scandal into strength. From chart-topping highs to personal lows, she's now a legend living her best life. We've uncovered her whole story. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. Loved this deep dive? Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more epic stories of resilience. Drop a comment. What shocked you most about Baek's journey? Share her saga with friends and keep the buzz alive. Watch more on our channel, because heroes like her deserve the spotlight.